Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Hello, friends. This is Molly McCord, and thank you for joining me for a special episode of this podcast where we're going to talk about the 2020 astrology energies and how you can consciously and intentionally prepare for these big world changes that are unfolding over the next decade. Now, when we talk like this, it sounds very big, which it is, and it sounds potentially scary. It can create fear. It can create that sense of overwhelm and, oh no, the sky is falling. But what I want to offer you is a more empowering perspective, because there is so much about this change that is perhaps necessary, that we are ready for, that is perhaps right on time, perfectly timed for humanity's next best steps. So I would like to offer you some ways to be in charge of your energy that make you feel powerful, that connect you with your soul's vibration, that connect you with your soul's mission, and that remind you of your choices. Because it's so normal in our human selves to go into some of these fears, the potentials, all the things that are collapsing in the 3D, and we have to then remind ourselves to rise up, step up into a higher perspective, a deeper place of trust and faith, as well as rise up to the higher understanding of what is necessary to unfold, what is necessary to collapse, to destruct, to disintegrate, because there are energies that have been on the planet that have served their purpose. They have been dense. They have done a lot of things to humanity. There are ways that we can interpret these energies. But what I want to focus on is that humanity has evolved to a whole new place, and we're living in a time of higher energies. Humanity has reached that tipping point of awakening energies. There are more higher energies on the planet now than ever before. So in a way, it only makes sense that whatever is of the lesser energies and the lower densities must collapse, must be complete. But that doesn't mean it will be easy or simple or fast. So we're going to talk about how to be consciously and actively aware of your own energy during this big pivotal shift in humanity's journey. If you are new to this program, I am a professional intuitive astrologer, a best-selling author, a spiritual teacher, and I love helping other healers, spiritual experts, spiritual guides with their business too. So I wear a lot of hats. Perhaps you can relate to that in your own world. And I have a few different websites. mollymccord.online is business development videos and tips for healers, spiritual experts, guides, and authors. ConsciousCoolChic.com is where you can go to find more spiritual teachings and the books that I have published and sold in the world. And then SpiritualityUniversity.com is a place I started back in 2014 that has featured many spiritual experts with their teachings. And now we offer free classes and programs to help more people on their spiritual path wherever you might be. So just a few websites that I hope may support you with what you're going through, as well as what you need to prepare for the next decade. So let's dive in here to this information. If you have followed my podcast, you know that I did a show recently about the Saturn and Pluto conjunction in Capricorn at 23 degrees. So that was a separate episode that featured that energy specifically, and it was the ongoing conversation between these two planets over the past 37 years and how in 2020 there is an exact conjunction at 23 degrees of Capricorn and a lunar eclipse near the same point that really brings in these big revolutionary energies. And so please check out that episode for more of a deep dive into those energies. In this show, we're going to talk about how this works with your chart more closely. And one thing to be aware of is that for every person on the planet, we will all be working with Capricorn energies deeply, and you would want to identify in your chart where these degrees of Capricorn are for you. It's specifically the last decan of Capricorn that's really being highlighted. So between 22 degrees of Capricorn to 28 degrees of Capricorn. And that's not only because of the Saturn and Pluto conjunction, but it's because of the dance that unfolds throughout 2020 between Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn, and Jupiter in Capricorn, and how they're all on the dance floor, if you will, and they're all taking different turns with each other and bringing in new information and new energies. So, for example, we have that Saturn and Pluto conjunction, and then Saturn will move forward into the later degrees of Capricorn. Then Jupiter will come up and make a conjunction to Pluto throughout 2020. And that's because of retrograde energies that Jupiter and Pluto will meet up in Capricorn. And that will happen, they'll get close to each other they'll be exact at 17 degrees. Excuse me, I take that back. That's actually where Jupiter and Neptune will be in a sextile, is at 17 degrees. Jupiter at 17 degrees of Capricorn, Neptune at 17 degrees of Pisces. The conjunction between Pluto and Jupiter will be at 24 degrees of Capricorn, March 20th. And then as they do their retrograde dance, they will meet up again in June 2020 at 24 degrees of Capricorn. And there will also be a third connection between the two later on, and that will be November 2020 at 22 degrees of Capricorn. So you see how there's this tight dance between 22 and 24 degrees of Capricorn. And then as Jupiter moves forward, it will be conjunct Saturn at 28 and 29 degrees-ish of Capricorn, and then they both move into Aquarius together in December 2020. So Jupiter trails Saturn in the late degrees of Capricorn, and they actually make their exact conjunction in Aquarius. But this is important, right, because it's part of the story and part of the transition and moving the energies forward. And then also at this time, we're going to have Mars in Aries. Yes, that's right. Mars in Aries, instigating and igniting some big, passionate energies and changes. And there will be a few times that Mars in Aries connects Pluto, because Mars will be going retrograde in Aries in the second half of 2020. And so they will make a square at 23 degrees of Aries and 23 degrees of Capricorn. And then there will be another square at 22 degrees of Aries, 22 degrees of Capricorn. And then again, the third and final square will happen at 18 degrees, 23 degrees of Aries and Capricorn. So in your chart and in everybody's chart, those 22 to 24 degrees of Capricorn are the hot spot. And they're going to be receiving a lot of energy. It's really this deep forced time of permanent changes that cannot be denied or resisted. It's like, ready or not, here it comes, we're doing this. And to be aware of what house placement this is in your chart is key, because the house describes the area of life that you're going to feel and undergo this deep, permanent, powerful change. And we can look at that, and you can be aware of that. And that's why I want to share that now, because now you can be contemplating, okay, I as a soul was ready for this deep, powerful change between 22 and 24 degrees of Capricorn. And that means it's this area of my life, and it's this part of my world that I'm going to be really stepping into a new sense of mastery, self-reliance, integrity. And there's a story that's unfolding here. And I'm going to actually look at the Sabian Cymbals at these 3 degrees of Capricorn, 22 degrees of Capricorn, 23 degrees of Capricorn, and 24 degrees of Capricorn. Now, the Sabian Cymbals are a really powerful story by astrologer Dane Rudier that describes each degree of the zodiac. All 360 degrees have a storyline or an archetype within them. And so I'm going to give you a brief description of what they are for these points in the zodiac. At 22 degrees of Capricorn, by accepting defeat gracefully, a general reveals nobility of character. The keynote is the realization that one may grow through defeat as well as, and perhaps more than, through success. So this is the part of the story where things must collapse and fall down, and nobility of character is revealed, and understanding of what's happening is the teacher. Capricorn at 23 degrees, the Sabian symbol is a soldier receiving 2 awards for bravery in combat. The reward offered by society for the fulfillment of individual responsibility. Powerful, right? And that's where the Pluto and Saturn conjunction happens in Capricorn. The reward offered by society for the fulfillment of individual responsibility. In other words, how certain energies have served their purpose, they've been fulfilled, and now it's time to move on to the next layer that includes individual responsibility. By the way, I'm going to provide a link below this video that takes you to this information so you can read it. And so just a moment back to that Capricorn at 22 degrees. The key word for that are inner strength. At Capricorn for 23 degrees, with a soldier receiving 2 awards for bravery in combat, the key word here is recompense, as in compensation for a well-done performance. I didn't say that word right. To be recompensated, recompense. So some type of a balancing of accounts, okay? And then, this is amazing, Capricorn at 24 degrees, a woman entering a convent. The keynote is total commitment to a transcendent goal. And the keywords here is transcendent security, which is that sense of no matter what changes, I'm safe. No matter what falls apart and shifts, no matter what happens outside of me internally, I am safe. I am well. I am with my soul. I am with my being. Transcendent security. You rise above what is happening in the physical, and you've entered that convent or that sanctuary, that inner realm, that inner place where everything is peaceful, regardless of the external. So, beautiful messages, right, for 22 to 24 degrees of Capricorn, which is where these biggest energies are shifting and changing and ultimately really coming down. It's really coming down. So the visual I have around 2020 is that of a house being renovated. And if you have ever lived through a renovation process, what's the first thing that happens? You get out the hammer, you get out the axe, and you go in and you start tearing into those kitchen cabinets and you start breaking things down, right? You have to gut it out. It has to be destroyed. And that is what this energy is at first. It's like you have to understand the bigger picture here is that, okay, we're renovating our home on this earth. We're renovating it. And so you come in and you gut it out and you take out the stuff and you find the mold and you find that there's rats and you see that there's this gross stuff underneath and you're like, how are we even living in this place? And you take out and clear out what is done. And so this is a renovation that we're living through, and it's also wildly inconvenient in some ways because even if you can see the long term, which is that, okay, this remodel is necessary, it's time to upgrade, we need some new appliances, we certainly need some nice marble or granite countertops now, right? It's the upgrades of what you've always wanted. And so you look at it as, well, this is just part of the process. In order to get to that new end result, we have to go through this renovation and tearing things down and tearing things out. We have to go through the collapse. And the Pluto energy is about the collapse, the destruction, and what needs to be removed because it has served a purpose, but it no longer connects with the best and highest energy for all. Pluto, at its highest, is about how everyone feels empowered. And in some ways that could be an ideal, but that's also the stretch. It's like making sure that the power is not just handed down or bequeathed to the top 1%. It's taking away what has allowed that to happen. And so each of us is going to be living through this at an individual and collective level. And the question to ask yourself is, well, how do I deal with big permanent change and understanding that this has to be renovated and it's just time, and can I stick with it? And can I keep the right perspective through all of this? Because it can be fearful. It can be scary. It can push you to places that you didn't want to go, you didn't think you would go. But in your chart, the house placement is where this remodeling is happening. And these other planets are all coming through. So Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter are all moving through this space. Now, we'll also have the Sun and Mercury and the other personal planets as well. But it's the outer planets that affect the collective and are associated with generational evolution. We are evolving together through these energies of the outer planets, through the destruction, the collapse, and what needs to fall down in order to build anew. So not only is it about that gutting it out, but we're being asked to look at, what do you want the finished product to be? What do you want this renovation to look like when it's complete? And we aren't going to have answers right away, but you, in your chart, can look at what renovations are happening in my life, in this area of my chart, and what do I want it to look like? And I would allow those change. I would allow it to change. These are energies that are changing and changeable, meaning there's going to be new things that come in that we're not aware of yet. There's going to be new potentials, new possibilities. Or, I mean, haven't you ever, maybe if you've done any kind of a remodel, you know that you have your budget, you have your timeline, you have your preferred materials, and then you go to the store and you're like, okay, I really want these marble countertops, and they tell you, sorry, those are on back order. You're like, okay, how long do I have to wait? Back order would be a retrograde planet. Or you go in and you're like, okay, these are the cabinets we want. And they're like, great, you can only order those custom, and they take a little bit longer and they cost a little bit more. And so you have to look at your budget and move some things around and say, well, what can I commit to? And so basically we get new information as the year unfolds and as the decade unfolds. So don't be too locked into all the specifics, but understand that this remodel is meant to show you more of your soul's mastery in this lifetime, as well as other lifetimes. I feel that there's a lot of potential in this decade, and it's for those who are ready to step into it, who are ready to step into those Capricorn energies and that ownership and that sense of I'm ready. I know I'm ready. I've put in the time. I've put in the years and the experience, and I've been learning and gaining information. Capricorn is the 10th astrological sign. So there were 9 astrological signs preceding it that we've been moving through in different cycles that has prepared for this 10th sign. And 10 is a high-achieving energy. If you are connected with numerology, you know that 10 is powerful. It connects to the number 1, which is a new start. If you know Tarot, it's connected typically with the Wheel of Fortune. It's connected with things being at a peak. And are you ready to level up and to step into these parts of yourself that perhaps you didn't think you were ready for, but now we're all getting this push. We're all being pushed to take command of ourselves. And by doing that, we influence the collective. And you take back a sense of power as well, because what collapses in the 3D, it's what's the word? It reveals so much. Okay, here's the visual I'm getting. The other day I went to an indoor jumping, bouncing place with my son. And it's a cool place. It's fun. And they have all these bouncy houses that are blown up inside. And there's probably like 5 bouncy houses. Those bouncy houses are so vulnerable because they're only filled with air. And when they all collapse flat down onto the floor, what do you see? You're like, wait a minute, this was all an illusion. I thought this was a structure. I thought this was something else. But, right? Like you get the visual of like all this stuff just deflates or collapses, and it's like, oh my goodness, I thought it was stronger, or I thought it was something else, or that there was more to support it. But when the bouncy house is deflated, it's just a pile of plastic, and there's all this space then for something else to be built. I don't want to idealize this because a lot about these energies can be very challenging and difficult. And I'm a realist, and we don't live in Candyland. We don't live in Candyland. It's not a marshmallow world. And I know that there are some people who are going to go into that fear or into the powerlessness or into, oh, don't talk about this because I can't handle it, or I'm a spiritual being and I don't want to think this way. But we live in a physical world, and this is the reality that we have to contend with. I mean, if you don't need money for anything, then you wouldn't, then okay, good for you. If you don't rely on oil or gas in any area of your life, you should be fine. If you don't have to worry about taxes, or you don't have a government, or you don't have to deal with any of those things, then maybe you won't feel a thing. And that's one way to look at it, because you'd have to really be off the grid to not be impacted by some of these giant changes that are happening, permanent changes too. And so it's about being realistic. It's about the Capricorn energies, which are realistic. And they look at what we see and what is happening, what is happening in front of us that we have to accept and deal with, and not try to escape into the nearest Candyland or Chutes and Ladders game. The Capricorn is about maturity, and we're each being called into that area of our lives to be ready, to be willing, and to be able to step into what it means to be your own executive, and to be able to handle things and know that you're playing a long game. We're playing a long game with this. And so that's where we have to also feel a new commitment to ourselves and a new commitment to each other. Capricorn is also associated with what we do as a society, the public, right? And how we all create this experience together, and we've set up certain structures and institutions that have been necessary and needed. And when that changes or shifts, what next? Well, what's next is that the story continues. The story continues, and then we make new choices, and we have new leaders, we have new options, we have new plans, we have more to look at and think about, and that's the project, right? That's where it goes as well when these planets then move into Aquarius, which is about the collective and looking at what structures and information and knowledge that we've obtained can now help set up the new society or the new understanding of how our world works. So some things that can transpire would be different political or government structures are no longer what they once were. For example, we already see this with Brexit, right? And the EU. It brings up the United Nations and what may transpire with that organization. It brings up how various countries are structured and their political systems and their governments and all of this stuff, okay? So that's what's being highlighted collectively. But for you as an individual, we all chose to participate in this time because there would be something for you to master too. And I feel like that's a really strong message to understand. So when you look in your chart to find these areas of Capricorn that are being emphasized, you know that, okay, this is the area that's being renovated in my life while I'm living in this house. So the kitchen's being renovated, the whole house is being renovated, and you walk into a room and you're looking for the fridge and it's not there, or you're looking for the oven or the stovetop and it's not there, and you can't find the coffee maker. And I mean, that's truly the biggest crisis of the day, is when you can't find a coffee maker in the morning. But that's what this is. It's like, okay, it's not where it was. Where is it now? Oh, right, it's in the garage. Coffee maker's in the garage. Things are being reorganized. And that can create that confusion, that fear, that chaos. But it's up to us to maintain a long-term perspective. This is such a big energy that you'll hear many perspectives out there. And just trust what resonates with you. I think there's a lot of amazing astrologers with really good information and good insights about these energies. And I think it's also about the long game and understanding how there's more that will support the next steps, but it won't happen fast. And we have to just stay with it day by day. And that's the way that we become mentally stronger as well. Because even if there's a fear that comes up, you could see the fear as a starting point. The fear doesn't have to be the end. It could be the starting point of, okay, I'm not sure about this. I feel uncertain. I feel confused. I'm afraid of blah, blah, blah. What do I do next? Well, that then is the Capricorn executive energy that steps in and says, okay, this is what we do. This is how I'm going to command this ship. And it is the energy in your own chart, in you, that you're commanding and you're leading. And that's what's being asked of each of us. Now, I wanted to highlight something as well that's a little bit more generational based. That's really important too. If you were born in the mid to late 60s, and I'm just guessing on these dates, okay, so you'll have to look in your own chart, but say about 1966 to 1968 or 1969. This is when there was a lot of energy in Virgo, and even 1965. And the energies were in Pluto and Uranus in Virgo. And it could be that you were born during the times when they were at 22 to 24 degrees of Virgo. So this is a generational energy. And I believe that also at the time, Saturn was in Pisces and Chiron was in Pisces. I've worked with a lot of clients who have this opposition in their chart of the two planets in Virgo and the two planets in Pisces opposing each other. Now, if you have any planets or points between 22 and 24 degrees of Virgo or even Taurus, you're being called up. Because Capricorn is the commander, and these Capricorn energies are going to be trining your Virgo and or Taurus energies. You're being called up into the earth energies of the physical world. Now you put to use your expertise, your service, your healing, your abilities, your soul mission, what you've been training for, where you've been an apprentice. Pluto says, I'm calling you. Saturn says, you're up. Jupiter says, it's time. And this is being strongly activated for many of you between, I'm going to say 66, 69. You have to check your chart. And this is important because I know, too, that many of you just went through Saturn in Sagittarius squaring these points, which is tough, and then Chiron in Pisces squaring these points in your chart, which was tough. And it was like carving out and removing and showing you what had to be healed, because now you're going to be stepping up and using these Virgo energies for the greater good of all. And that's part of that generation's purpose. See, that's part of how this trine energy works with the outer planets, is that now things click. And you thought you missed something, or there was a struggle, or you did it all wrong, and now you're stepping into more of your abilities, more of your gifts, more of your talents, and now you really step into service in a whole new way because of these collapsing systems that are going to impact people, and you are the ones who rush in to help heal, guide, transform, show them how to deal with the practical realities of life. And this is exciting, my friends. This is part of this change, is that the new people step up and step forward. The generation, that's a generational energy, which is also what Pluto signifies, is how each generation evolves us. And then if you were born with Libra, Pluto in Libra, it will be your turn in about 10 years or so when Pluto is in Aquarius and then starts to move through and trine your planets in Libra. So we'll talk about that way later. But this is what's important, okay? You're being called up. You're being asked to put it into action, make something real, to really be productive and ready. And be ready, because there's going to be a greater need for your expertise, and you'll feel it like this rising power within you as well. Now, this energy will also be working with the planets, the outer planets in Scorpio, Uranus, Neptune, and also Pluto, and Pluto is in Scorpio. If you have any planets or points between 22 or 24 degrees of Scorpio, the outer planets, Capricorn says you're up, right? Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn says you're up. It's now time to show us and put into practice what you've learned about money, finances, power, the collective, what other people do together, all the strengths of the Scorpio energy. So there's activation energies here too. It's not just about things falling apart. I mean, it's like there's things to be consciously aware of in your own chart so that you can see your role, your contribution, and how you're going to be needed decade. So the renovation is happening globally, and it's happening within each of us internally, and it's going to change what we find important, where we place our money and our values, and it's going to require us to each move through a Pluto process. Because when Pluto is strong, we feel it, and we go into the shadow and the dark caves and the intensity, but then we're meant to move through that and emerge on the other side. And we can feel these energies growing throughout 2019. And then, of course, 2020 is where more things, unravel or destruct or are revealed or come to the surface. And then we move into the new decade with a new agenda, new priorities. And again, this is not fast moving. It's slow moving. And one way to get through anything slow moving is not only to take it day by day, but to look back on times in your life when you were feeling a lot, and how did you get through it? What were your tools? What were your tools? Well, we have a lot of tools these days. Not only do you have your astrology chart to reference, but we have the ability to work with ourselves consciously through various healing modalities. And I talk about acupuncture a lot. I talk about EFT and tapping. There's other ways to work with energy that would support your body dealing with changes, whether that is Reiki, sound healing, Jin Shin Jitsu. Oh my gosh, there's so many. Of course, I'm going to draw a blank. but I know that many of you know. In fact, what I would love for you to do is on YouTube in the comments, please write down your favorite healing practices. Let people know what they can try or figure out or sample. Let people know something new that might resonate or support them. We need each other's wisdom and knowledge, so if you could just contribute anything that comes to mind in the YouTube comments, that would be fantastic. We can make this a good database of reference and tools. Keep in mind that there's also new potentials that emerge during these big times. There are big developments that happen that will be wins, that will be right on time. And I love the poem by the Hopi tribe, Hopi Nation in Arizona. I'm going to read it to you now. Every time I read this poem, I tend to get teary-eyed, so bear with me. It's called A Hopi Elder Speaks. You have been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell the people that this is the hour. And there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. And do not look outside yourself for the leader. Then the elder clapped his hands together, smiled, and said, "This could be a good time." There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above water. And I say, see who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time for the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And that right there, spoken from an elder, Capricorn energy is elder. Capricorn is crone energy. It is the wisdom of life, of experience, of the bigger picture. And it's a reminder of what there is within us. So understand that at a soul level, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And I feel it across lifetimes. I feel it across soul's journeys that were unfulfilled, that there was something you always wanted to do, that there was something you needed to fulfill, something to master, to own, to step into, and to offer. That's what this decade's about. And if you can remember that, as it says, if you can keep your head above water, and keep your eyes open, and just flow with this river and move in it, it will be the fastest way to get there. Astrologically, this is Neptune in Pisces. That is the river of spiritual growth, of the water flowing and pushing you to new shores. Technically, Neptune in Pisces is connected with the ocean, so we're all being taken out into the ocean to experience what truly matters. And I feel like the best way to prepare for this is to maintain your spiritual perspective, whatever that is for you. And so that's one other thing to have in your toolkit. What is your spiritual perspective? Where do you go to feel powerful, to feel connected, to feel in alignment with yourself? Where do you go at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day for that connection? Go there as well for what we're moving through, and go to the understanding of how we wouldn't be here if we couldn't handle this, and that it will be a time of great conversations, potentials, disagreements, different agendas, power struggles, just that human stuff coming out, and yet it's the beginning. The beginning is near. The beginning of what happens next in this story. The beginning that supports the age of Aquarius. And the sense that you want to participate, you want to contribute, you want to be someone who offers the best to humanity. And I found that a lot of people with the spiritual perspective and bigger understanding, they're ready to come out of the closet, perhaps, or they're ready to step into what works for them and what they own and what feels right for them. That it could be that those who have subscribed to other religious or spiritual understandings are feeling unfulfilled. But this is part of the human journey, too, that we all choose what supports us, what feels right for us. And you could find that more people are open to different conversations and perspectives than ever before. And you could find that, as it says with the Sabian Cymbals, there are more, with the woman entering a convent, more people want to find that place that they can always go to, always retreat to, that is timeless and pure. I see it as a beautiful ball of, it's not even white light, it's luminescence, and it's strong, it's glowing, it's powerful, it's pure, and I believe it has the energy of the soul's purest experience, the soul's purest energy, as it starts to come into form, as it starts to create something that matters, and it comes from that place of unconditional love. So together we are going to watch this renovation happen, and there will be a collapse, and there will be things that destruct and fall apart. There will be a lot of the 3D structures that are no longer of service because they are corrupt and they are not okay. Let's just say they're not okay. And that is their ending. And then the beginning happens with what we co-create together next. So being aware of your astrology chart is going to assist you and be your compass and your guide. And, of course, we're going to keep this conversation going throughout 2019 and into 2020. So please join me as I continue to share with you more insights about the astrology and energies of these very dynamic times that we're living in. I do a Monday show and a Wednesday show, and you can find every podcast on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and everywhere else that podcasts are distributed these days. So thank you, my friends. I hope this has given you some really good food for thought, some really important things to consider for your own toolkit, and to understand that we can do this because we signed up for it. We came in with the ability to handle big, permanent change, and if you can stay in that place of ownership, integrity, and commitment to yourself and your mastery, you'll be golden. You'll be golden. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you back here really soon for a new podcast episode. Until then, have a beautiful day ahead, and I wish you a lovely day. Bye-bye.